Lamell McMorris, welcome to the conversation today.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. Where are you joining us from?
I am in Chicago and it is a little chilly and we actually got a little snow today. So, yeah.
Oh, snow. I was just in Chicago just a few weeks ago. Beautiful fall weather at the time. And I'm in
Yes.
Salt Lake City area. It's also very chilly here, though we haven't had snow in the valleys yet.
I love Utah. Beautiful, beautiful state.
Well, it is just a pleasure to be with you today. Today, we're going to be talking about your book, The Power to Persist: Eight Simple Habits to Build Lifelong Resilience. I love that. We live in a world where resilience is really, really important. Things are kind of crazy, and um, the complexity seems to continually ramp up.
Yes.
Um, I mean, you name it, things are in flux. Socioeconomic, geopolitical, things in our homes, things at work,
Indeed.
disruptions all over the place. And how do you deal with that? It really comes down to persistence and resilience because everyone is going to have their struggles. Everyone's going to have their daily challenges, whether that's again in your personal life, your family life, your work life, whatever.
Indeed.
And it's not about like whether or not you fall down. It's about whether or not you get back up, right? And dust yourself off
Yes.
and keep going.
Yes.
And we all know that, I think conceptually, but in practice it's hard to do. And it's hard when you feel beaten down, when you feel like you're banging your head against that brick wall over and over and over again. It's really easy to give up. It's really easy to just take the path of least resistance.
Right.
And while conceptually it may make sense that we just need to keep pushing and we need to keep trying and we need to persist and be resilient, it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. And so I'm really, excuse me, I'm thrilled to have the chance to chat with you today about your insights, your experiences around persistence and resilience. As we get
Thank
started, I
you.
wanted to share Lamell's bio with everybody. Lamell McMorris is a nationally recognized entrepreneur, activist, and changemaker dedicated to advancing equity and revitalizing underserved communities. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, he went on to find phenomenal success as a DC policymaker, a consultant in the financial and professional sports arenas, and a civil and human rights advocate. McMorris is the founder and CEO of the Washington, D.C. based company Phase 2 Consulting, which offers strategic insight and external affairs services to some of the nation's leading decision makers in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors, including Fortune 100 companies. He is also founder and managing principal of Greenlining Realty USA, a comprehensive urban redevelopment firm dedicated to neighborhood investment, redevelopment, housing rehabilitation, and home improvement in low income communities. I could go on. There's just so many really cool things about your background, your accomplishments, but I'm going to pause there. Anything you would like to highlight before we dive on it?
No, John, I'm just excited to be here with you and excited to be engaged in this kind of conversation. As you mentioned, it's such an interesting time, right? I when I set out to write this book, frankly, I didn't really set out to write a book. I really set out to answer a question that's been asked of me, and that is, how do I keep going? Why do I keep going? And it turns out that we're in a moment in time where this notion of being resilient, being able to press forward, press on, and continue despite both losses and wins, right? Headwinds and good times. I didn't know that it would be such a momentous time and that things would align in the way I had no idea. I tell people, John, that you know how when a friend of yours has a new car that you've never heard of, right?
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden after that friend gets the car, you start to see it everywhere, right?
Yeah.
That's how, this thing around resilience hit me a couple of years ago. And then whether it's CNBC or ESPN or a movie or a television show, the word resilient and resilience just kept coming up. And I said, I think I'm on to something. I think this is something that people need. And I had no idea we'd be where we are at this moment in time.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. That's actually one of the first things I always ask authors is like, why this book? Why now? Like, why is this so important? You did a really great job of laying that out for us. And you're right. Like it's a timely topic. It's one that gets a lot of attention. There's a lot of buzzword
Right.
buzzwordy, talk around it, but
Right.
oftentimes we don't get past the surface level of like
Right.
what it actually means and how it actually plays out. And there's also, just as a caveat at the beginning, like I recognize sometimes we can get into like toxic resiliency or toxic
Mm.
persistence. And like I'll just say right on the outset, there are times where you need to protect yourself, you need to have appropriate boundaries. And there are times where it's better to cut and run. Like you do not need to
Uh,
continually put yourself in bad
absolutely.
situations,
Is
certainly
that
not.
what you mean by toxic resilience? Because you're the first person. This is the first time I've heard that. So tell
Yeah,
me.
I mean, they're definitely like I've seen people that I would say have a toxic resilience mindset, and it's almost like
Mm,
they are like martyrs. Like they're just willing to
mm,
suffer endlessly
ah,
and not get themselves out of bad situations
got it.
because because they believe in resiliency. And
Got it.
resiliency is really great and it's really important. But there are times where you need to protect yourself or others around you, and it's just not healthy, to maintain that. And so I want to acknowledge that on the outset of this
Yeah.
conversation, because yes, you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely take care of
Yeah.
yourself. But we also understand life's not a cakewalk for anybody. And
No.
so we need to also build the muscle of being able to endure hard things because we're all going to face hard things and we can't
Indeed.
we can't cut and run every last time we face a hard thing, right? So somewhere in between like being in a like physically or emotionally abusive environment at work or at home or whatever, that's one extreme that you don't want to be in. And on the other end, you're like, oh, I'm so, it's hard. I'm not going to do this anymore because I don't want to try. That's another end of the spectrum. And most of us find ourselves in between, right? We're somewhere where life is hard. We
Right.
face challenges. We fall down. We need to get back up. And that's where really I think persistence and resilience plays in.
Yeah, I think, this notion of toxic resilience, when we talk about in the book The Power to Persist and this concept of resilience and the 8 habits that I talk about, I
Hmm.
hope that you and your listeners see a marriage between resilience and purpose.
Yeah.
Resilience and not being broken, but perhaps sometimes being bent. Resilience that is continuing to move us forward towards, just as you mentioned, towards some sense of healing, some sense of purpose, some sense of an outcome. But yeah, this notion of toxic resilience, where we take on things that are hurtful, take on things that impel our ability to move forward. That's actually not what I think you and I are talking about today.
Yeah, yeah, not at all, not at all. And so, what we're talking about today is really all about the empowering, ability of like a resilience growth mindset, right? That we can learn from setbacks. The only time, a mistake is really, a failure is if we don't learn from it.
Absolutely.
And so because we're all human, we all have gaps, in terms of our perceptions, our biases. We all have times where, we just aren't our best self emotionally when we're with other people, or,
Sure.
or we, mentally, we have a gap in our decision
Sure.
making. Like we all have that because we're all human. And
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 by the way,
so
acknowledging that is part of a resilient journey, as a matter of fact, that level of vulnerability that you just mentioned, which is hard for business leaders and when you're in charge and you lead, and just even if you're not in charge, it's hard to admit sometimes that, I am hurting. Hey, John, today is just not my day. John, I don't know the answer to all those, and I used to think that and by the way, this is probably the concept out of the 8, if you wanted to know, that is probably the most difficult even for me today, right? This, because there's this element where we feel like we have to demonstrate that we've got it all together, that we've got to put in the world out there this facade that everything is okay. And but in fact, uh I believe that vulnerability gives us an opportunity not to push people away, but to actually bring people closer to us. And it actually is not confining, John, but it's actually liberating. So that's why I really wanted to hone in on that, because in what you just mentioned, you touched on one of the key 8 habits, and probably one that I think is the most the secret sauce, but actually perhaps maybe the most difficult for all of us, and that is this element of vulnerability.
Yeah, and just to double click on that for a minute, especially I think for leaders, who feel like they have to be strong
Absolutely.
um in the face of challenge, and they have to put on a brave face, and they have to, demonstrate to their team that they know the answers. That's a fallacy. Like yeah, you can't run around
Or
like
by the way, or that's your role in your family or in
yeah,
your friend group, right?
yeah,
It's not just in the workplace and
that's
in
right.
organizations and in right. It's that may be you're a public servant, and that may be your role in the community, right? Where you always have to put on this front that everything is okay and all right.
Yeah, I'm a father. I have 6 children,
Mm,
and they tease. We have a fun teasing relationship, and we have fun together. They certainly know I'm not perfect.
right, right,
Um,
right,
and
right.
and I'm glad that they don't think I'm perfect, or that I'm not trying to be perfect. I grew up, I don't know if it was a generational thing, but like growing up, I did think my parents were perfect. Like
Yeah,
I really did. And I remember how devastated I was when that bubble burst for me, and how I realized, oh, they are not perfect. They're just flawed humans. And and guess what? It didn't actually change. I still love my parents. Like I didn't actually like all of a sudden think my parents are terrible. It
yeah.
just became it was just the new reality, and it was jarring, you know?
But I
Uh,
want to go back to your 6 children
yeah.
and the fact that you acknowledge that they know that you're not perfect. What are the opportunities that exist in that exchange where you get to demonstrate to them that, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. What I think it'll be helpful for people to know,
Yeah.
because I think we think about this from a business and a leadership standpoint, but man, I think there's something there as a dad and in your household of 6 kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's just this. I mean, people have different styles of parenting, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not here to say one style is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know for my wife and I that, we're not like it's our way or the highway kind of parents.
Mm-hmm.
That implies, I think, a level of perfection, because my way is the right way. You have to do it
Right.
my way. Whether it's the intention or not of a parent who parents that way, it is implied, that your way is the right way, and
Right.
that you need to do it that way in order to be successful, to be happy, to be whatever, right?
Right.
And we just don't approach it that way. So I think from the very get-go, we try to lay a foundation for just like, you know what? We're people, we're human, we're trying to figure this out as we go. We're literally, there's no manual for you kids, and we're trying to build the plane while we're flying it, right? And
Right.
our
Right.
our job is to keep you safe and to keep you love. You need to feel loved, you need to feel safe. You need to have the opportunity to grow and explore and grow into yourself. And so that's kind of the underlying premise of like our approach to parenting. And with that, I just make mistakes. Like there will be
Mm-hmm.
times where I sometimes it's silly. Like sometimes it's just a silly mistake. And, I'm just the first to acknowledge, oh, that was a dumb thing to say, or that was
Mm-hmm.
I probably just did that thing that was annoying to you. I'm sorry. Like sometimes it's silly, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's more serious.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll do something or say something that hurts someone's feelings, or just creates, some sort of an environment that I don't like, that I don't think they like. And, I try to be the first to acknowledge that. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, kids. I'm sorry that just happened. I'm sorry that I responded that way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard day. Something happened at work. Or I'm, whatever. Like, not to make excuses, but to just couch it within context of like, I'm sorry. Like I'm not perfect. And those opportunities happen all the time, because I'm
Yeah.
human. And I think largely we have a home environment where it's playful, and we can acknowledge that. And like yeah, they tease me not because they're being mean-spirited, but because they know I can take it. Like
Right.
one of the signs of like a healthy relationship is that you can rib each other,
Yeah.
not in like obnoxious ways, but just in lighthearted ways. And so they'll tease me about stuff, and I'll I'll take that. I'm not like thin-skinned. And and anyways, I think these are some of the things. Again, I'm not perfect at being vulnerable, but like I think my kids know that I don't claim to know it all. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I just want to help them to be happy and to
What about this notion of showing emotion? Do you
mm.
feel that as dad, that, you can't always show emotion? I think some parents, especially men in the parental dynamic, feel like, that level of vulnerability is like a no-no.
Yeah. Again, maybe it comes back to like general parenting philosophy where I'm your parent, not your friend. I'm your like
Right,
those types of things. I need to be the
right,
I need to be kind of the strong leader of the home,
right.
whatever. Like sometimes there's these kind of mindsets, and again, I'm not here to tell anyone that that's not necessarily okay for you to do in your home, but I'm just like for my home and for my family and really for my leadership style at work, like that's not who I am, and that's not how so it would be totally inauthentic of me to
Right.
show up that way with people I lead at work or with my kids at home. It would just seem so weird and off, and
Mm-hmm.
people can tell when you're not being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, yeah, it's like I can unpack my emotions with my kids,
Mm.
man, I just had a visceral reaction to something that just happened, and I wasn't my best self in response
Right.
because of that initial like fight or flight kind of visceral reaction. um
Right.
and I can acknowledge that, and I can help while I try to unpack that and understand that for myself, so I have better control, so that I have better emotional regulation in the future. Like I can
Yeah.
model that for my kids, and I can help them to see, like, hey, you're gonna have those same things. Like, there's gonna be times where you have a reaction that's not the best reaction,
Yeah.
and there are ways around that. There are ways to um, honor and lean into your emotions while not being victim to them, right? And
I love
so
it.
we have dialogue around that sometimes, and we just try to be open about that. Again, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think when you can have like appropriate, vulnerability in front of people like your kids or with
Yes.
members of your team at work, and
Yes.
then it gives them permission to be vulnerable. It gives them permission
Yes.
to
Yes.
share of themselves. And I
Yes.
can have more meaningful conversations with my kids when they know that that's something I'm open to, and that's something I'm encouraging of them to be, and same thing at
Absolutely.
work. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's liberating. It's not confining and constraining.
Yeah, you've said that a couple times now, and I completely agree. I think done well, resilience and persistence and emotional vulnerability and authenticity, these are all things that are empowering and uplifting, and they expand the pie, they expand the bubble of your influence and like what's possible.
Yes.
So often we get stuck in fixed mindsets, we get stuck in zero sum games, and we
Mm.
think it's all like this competition, like my kids either respect me, or they're going to walk all over me, like that's a
Mm.
false dichotomy. Like that's
Mm.
not real. It can become real if that's how we act around them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
like that's not a real decision. Like that's a false dichotomy, whether at home or at work or whatever. And if we can acknowledge that, then we can actually have, productive conversations, have meaningful conversations, and other people can be meaningful, like true to themselves, how they approach you and interact with you if you create that kind of environment.
I love it. Indeed.
Yeah. Well, you've already teased a little bit from the book in terms of the principles.
Yes.
But maybe we can spend the rest of our time just digging in a little bit. What are those 8 simple habits that have helped you to build your lifelong resilience?
Yeah. I start off the book, John, with the habit attitude, right? It sounds right simple, and I think folks have heard it, but this this, and you mentioned it earlier, putting yourself in the right mindset, it dictates so much, right? You almost can't get to the other seven habits effectively without embracing this first concept of attitude, and how our attitude really does dictate outcomes on our behalf. And then one, to really dig down, I talk about this notion of gratitude, this having an attitude of gratitude, and I suggest in the book that people every day just kick off your day with a gratitude journal. Just make a list of some of the things, because so often we focus on the negative, we focus on the bad things, but to kick off your day and to start your day with a focus on the things that are going well, the things that you're grateful for. That if you start off your day that way, headwinds may come, challenges may come, trials and tribulations may come, but kicking off with an attitude of gratitude. And I talked to a CEO, a friend of mine who runs a global entity, and he said, Lamell, I take a gratitude walk every
Mm,
morning.
I like
I
that.
thought that was so powerful, right? That this guy who leads this major global organization, but even he recognizes that in order to deal with his business outcomes, in order to be the leader of his team, of his family, of his home, he starts off his day with a gratitude walk. And so, that is a big deal. And I talk about the importance of focus as one of the eight habits. I talk about dogged determination, right?
Mm,
Really just being determined and unceasing and unwavering in our desire for the things that we seek and the goals and the outcomes that we're working towards. I talk about the power of a network, and I suggest that your network can sometimes equal your net worth. But
mm,
it's not the superficial, I see John at a reception and John and I meet and greet and we exchange, business cards. It's actually the investment and the power of building a relationship that emboldens a network of people that are leaning into you in ways that are beyond just someone I can call, in my Rolodex. But that, when my clients and friends and in business see me, the first person they ask about John is my mother. How's
mm,
your mom doing? Because if you
mhm,
know me in business or in personal, you know how much that means to me and how important my mother is to me. And so we'll get to profits and growth and the business relationship, but when we start in a place where we're invested, and but that those are, networking is surface and superficial. Those are relationships that are cultivated and worked on and built and nurtured over time. And so I really lean into that. And I in the last habit that I talk about in the book is, especially for my journey in business and in my personal life, is this notion of faith. For some of us, faith is defined, John, as the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, right?
mhm,
And when you're in business, you're constantly working towards things and outcomes that you can't see today, but that you are hoping and working that they come to fruition in the future. And faith, sounds like this, overly religious concept, but what I've tried to impart, especially on young people, who are striving and climbing, is when you wake up and look in the mirror in the morning and you realize that you are the substance of things hoped for, that you are the living, breathing faith that we talk about, that you represent the substance and the evidence of things not seen for your family and your friends and the people that you're leading in business and the folks that you're working with in business and the folks who've laid a path and a foundation for you to do. When you realize and have the concept and the mindset that you are the substance of things hoped for, that you are walking, that, my friend, allows you to carry on a resilient journey in this life that money can't buy.
It really is a principle of action. So, yes,
Yes,
we often talk about faith in religious or spiritual terms.
yes,
Um, and in fact, I would say it is in spiritual terms, regardless of organized religion. Like
that's right.
it's a principle of action. Like
That's
it's a
right.
principle of seeing how you connect with the world around you and with others. In your community and moving from conceptual to reality, right?
That's right.
And so there's a level of manifestation that happens through the
That's
faith that
right.
you have in your own action. And I'm not even talking about like woo-woo manifestation. I manifest this
Right,
into the
right, right,
universe.
right.
I'm just talking about like if you don't believe that there's
That's
the
right.
potential for you to accomplish what you're setting out to do, you
That's right.
won't do it, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
so just having that faith in yourself, having that faith in your team, having that faith in your family, that helps you get through the hard times.
No
And
doubt
for
about it.
some, that's also embedded within a religious philosophy or religious paradigm. And for others, it's not, and that's fine. But like ultimately, it's all about how you're going to connect with other people. Yeah, I really love that. I think your ability to be resilient is so much stronger when you have a faith in something, a faith that is be more than just yourself, but
Absolutely.
it's also the people around you. It's your community. It's your it's whatever, right?
Yeah. So I book in, the first habit that I talk about is attitude, which is the last habit that we discuss in the book, The Power to Persist, is faith, right? Because they book in and are so connected. And then everything in between, dogged determination, focus, your network, etc., are the things that help build. But the two pillars, if you will, and vulnerability, but the two pillars are attitude and faith.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I love how you start with gratitude. The faith piece is so important. It's a relatively simple practice to get into the habit of, whether it's journaling or prayer or going on a gratitude walk, as you mentioned, or like whatever. Like there's so many different ways you can go about doing it, but that simple practice is a really great grounding practice. And let's be
And
honest, we live in a crazy world. Like there,
yeah, no,
there,
no, we do. And by
there's
the
a
way,
lot to focus on the negative, and we don't want to put our heads in the
absolutely.
sand, but like you can get overwhelmed by it.
So you said a couple of things that I don't think we should gloss over. One, you mentioned that these are simple, and I set out to make these simple, and we cannot move past the fact that I'm intentional when I state that these are habits. That means these things we have to make a part of our daily rituals. That's how you build resilience. It's not a one-off, do it every now and then. These are eight simple habits that I hope everyone, young or old, can embrace these concepts and incorporate them in their daily life. I think I lost you for a second, John.
Absolutely
There you
agree.
go.
I don't think it's rocket science, but it is challenging because anything that is habit, related requires consistency and discipline. And we're human. Like
Yes,
there's so many things that can get in the way. And so start simple. You like do a gratitude walk. I guarantee you you're walking during the day. So like choose some time, and maybe it's a set apart time when you're walking the dogs or whatever. Maybe it's just that you're going to have 10 minutes walking between meetings,
that's
and
right.
you're going to set that side of time to focus on gratitude. And it can make all the difference in the world though as we start to get into that practice and build that muscle so that you're not getting overwhelmed. Like the world is crazy, it's messy. There's so many things. Like there's a whole bunch of things that I'm really upset about and like I'm not happy about. You in your bio, I was reading about how you're a policy oriented change maker. I want to be that. I want to drive change. I want to
Yeah.
be an ally to marginalized communities. I want to help be the difference I want to see in the world. But
Yeah.
all of that means I have to recognize like the hard stuff. And I don't want to put my head in the sand and ignore it, but I also don't want to become so overwhelmed by it that I can't do anything to move forward, right?
Yeah, and that the change that we seek in others actually begins with us, right?
Yeah.
It's that whole notion when you get on the plane, and they tell you, hey, put your mask on first, and then you can help others, right? I tell folks that the best sermon that I can preach uh, is when I never open up my mouth,
Mm.
right? We've got to actually live and be what we want to see in this world and around with the people that are around us and in the communities where we serve.
Yeah, yeah. Well said. This has just been such a great conversation, Lamell. I really appreciate all of your
Great meeting
insights.
you, John.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I know at the time I probably have already kept you too long, but before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us the final word for today.
Awesome. The book is available everywhere where books are sold. The Power to Persist. Go on Amazon or any platform where books are sold. We also have a podcast. I'm actually speaking to you, John, from the basement of my childhood home. My mom is right
Mm.
upstairs. The Power to Persist podcast is available everywhere where you can listen to podcasts. And yes, please let's persist together. Join me at lamellmcmorris.com. I look forward to us continuing this resilient journey together. And I think we have an opportunity, John, to create a movement and let's persist together.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. It's just been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, get connected with Mel, find out more about what he can do for you, check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all
Amen.
have a great week.